votes. So what could these polls predict? Let's bring in Blue Stack Strategies founder Mara Gillespie. So Mara, the 4 states are Nevada, Georgia, Arizona, Michigan. What do you make of the poll that shows that the former president is leading Mr. Biden?
It's not surprising, given right now President Biden's leadership is pretty weak, and that's pretty evident given our economy, our border, and the stance that's being not really taken as far as supporting our allies. But what I would say about the polls is, what does that really tell us about politics right now, that pollsters, journalists, they're only assuming that it's Trump versus Biden? These are 77-year-old, 80-year-olds that, quite frankly, haven't given us much to look forward to. For Trump, he's talking backwards, and for Biden, he's not saying very much at all. So is this really the best that we have to offer this country? No. And I'm not giving up yet that the Republican nominee is going to be Donald Trump. I think as a party, we have to move forward. It is time to move forward.
Well, all the polls seem to show that the former president way out ahead, and that hasn't been chipped down, really at all. Why do you, have that position that you think that there could be somebody else?
Well, these polls are showing us a Trump versus Biden matchup. So it's not equating to what would it be a matchup with Nikki Haley, which a month ago there was polls that showed that she'd also be well ahead, and actually more ahead of Biden than Trump would be. So, but obviously it's pretty evident this is a real opportunity for Republicans, because the Harris-Biden ticket is very weak, and there is an opportunity here to capitalize. And unfortunately, we're going backwards by looking at Trump, who lost in 2020, and we have continued to lose with him at the helm. And as a party, I think we really need to take advantage of the opportunity before us here. We've got a debate coming up this week coming up, and this is going to be a really important few months for us to really think about what do we want our future to look like.
They're pretty close in age, like 3 years apart, but 51% of the Democrats believe that the President Biden, is too old to serve. There's some of the numbers up there. 59% of the Democrats said 51% there. What do you make of the fact that the majority of the Democrats think that he's too old?
To me, it kind of makes me sad that this is the best we have to offer, like that they couldn't come up with somebody better. Dean Phillips, congressman from Minnesota, he just jumped in at the very last minute. And most people and most, left-leaning commentators are just sort of ignoring him, quite frankly. The Biden team is doing so as well. But he's actually a candidate who I think as Republicans, we would be, it would be kind of an interesting head-to-head matchup there. But the fact that they're sticking with President Biden is, to me, again, an opportunity for Republicans to really put somebody forward who is forward-thinking and more well-rounded as a candidate.
What do you think it is with President Biden and some of the voters? You talked about the economy at the outset of our interview. But then the White House says, look, unemployment is the lowest like it's been for 50 years. I mean, they point to Bidenomics working, the new projects. Is it that some people think he's too left, the progressive have captured the Democratic Party too much? They look at the border, they don't see that, or they see, potential pauses being called for in Gaza, this sort of thing. What do they see that isn't working for the president now?
I'd say that it's the weakness of leadership. The people who are giving the biggest case for why Americans should be supporting Ukraine and supporting our allies in Israel, it's not coming from President Biden. It's coming from Netanyahu in Israel. It's coming from Zelensky in Ukraine. And, that to me shows weak leadership. And the fact of the matter is that what's happening overseas impacts us at home. And if President Biden doesn't stand firm against, these protesters that aren't protesting, for humanitarian efforts, they are protesting against Israel. And his failure to unequivocally stand up and be more vocal and more forceful with his support, there are times that leadership is so important. We saw Mike Pence stand up and against his own voters, essentially. The people who protested were looking to kill him for his decision to stand by the Constitution and certify the 2020 election. So there's protesters now coming out and attacking our White House, vandalizing our buildings. And the president of the United States needs to stand up and unequivocally say, we stand with Israel. We stand with the people who are hurting right now, who are hostages by a terrorist organization, and be unequivocal in that support, because the weakness of leadership is telling, and the American people, whether they support Republicans or not, are going to go towards Republicans. They want strength. They want security.
Well, finally, the president certainly has said that the United States stands behind Israel and that Israel has a right to defend itself. But at the bottom line, do you see a general, remember Jimmy Carter in the Malay speech, a general sense of uneasiness coming out of the pandemic, the crime situation that we have had in the past, people do look at the economy. They see the migrants at the southern border, and they see the instability in the world from Ukraine to what's happening in Israel. They put all that together and say, you know, something's not exactly right.
Right. And fear plays a big part of how we vote, right? Our bank accounts plays a big part of it, too. So the economy does play a central role. But also, we want to feel safe and secure here. We want to be sure that our kids can walk to school and feel safe, that, you know, that's something that we should all want. And we get to have here as Americans. We have so many wonderful freedoms, but they need to be protected. And again, Republicans tend to draw people in as far as voters because they believe that Republicans are best on economy, best on security and safety. And this election coming up is, I think, unless something changes dramatically in the next, 13 months, it's really going to be an important 12 months. It's going to be Republicans are going to take the win.
Those are the issues being focused on right now, and those are the ones that do play to the Republican strengths, according to the polls. So, Maura Gillespie, good to see you, and I know this won't be the last poll that we'll be talking about until we get to the final one, which is on Election Day. Good to see you. Thank you.